Good evening, good night, everyone. My name is Mark Hennings. I'm going to tell you Alric's biography. So just to give you a little background, and then for those who don't know, you'll get his qualifications here. Alric Lindsay graduated from Stetson University in Florida with a degree in accounting. He qualified as a certified public accountant with PricewaterhouseCoopers and worked as an auditor. Following his qualification as a CPA, he attended the University of London and later qualified as an attorney in 2005. Also in 2005, he passed the Canadian Securities course focusing on mutual funds. So he worked at that for a while, and then in 2022, he earned a certificate of anti-money laundering specialist certification, further enhancing his expertise in financial compliance. His professional memberships include the Cayman Islands Directors Association and the Chartered Governance Institute of Canada. Alric now acts as an independent director to investment funds and is registered with the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority as a professional director under the Directors Registration and Licensing Act. Assets under management of these funds total over $8 billion. In addition to his professional endeavors, Alric has been active in the community with the Cayman Food Bank during the COVID, delivering meals to seniors and vulnerable persons. Outside of COVID, he worked as a volunteer for Meals on Wheels, where he won the Pat Basil Award for community service. Further, he has donated to the Cayman Kind Action Committee, voluntary organization which helps seniors in the different communities. Lastly, he serves on the Community Emergency Response Team managed by Hazard Management, which reports information before, during and after storms. Regarding politics, Alric contested the Georgetown South constituency in the last general election. He is now contesting the 2025 elections, and when successful, will apply his background in law, accounting, and regulatory compliance to tackle financial government financial reporting issues, commenting on complex legislation and improving the framework for governance, transparency, and accountability. On a personal note, I've known Alric since he was a young lad at the squash club. No, serious. I've known Alric since a young lad at the squash club 30 years ago. Alric has always been interesting and thoughtful with unique abilities. Through the years, he has proved to be a brilliant individual and has developed into a mature and thoughtful man. Alric is truly concerned for the well-being of these islands. We need a smart, thoughtful Caymanians like Alric in the government. I have no problem endorsing Alric. I believe he will be a great addition to any government, and I'm sure he will be influential because his ideas are good and strong. Thank you for your time. Please vote for Mr. Alric Lindsay.
Good evening. I hope the Siri doesn't come on in my presentation. Thanks for joining me tonight. As I stand here and listen to Mark's story, I'm reminded of my childhood playing squash just down the road at the Southtown Squash Club. I was introduced to the sport around 11 years old by a teacher named Mr. Ozzie, and I was coached in the sport by Mr. Derek Tyler, a former biology teacher at the high school. In those days, to get to and from squash from Windsor Park, my friend Myron and I either walked through the dikes, which was where Fairbanks is now, and I think we exited somewhere along where the avenue is, and just either walked or rode on the way to the Southtown Squash Club. Alternatively, if we didn't go through the dikes, we would just take a long way around to Walkish Road, which was a long way when you're 11 years old. But I think whether walking or on our bikes, we got to see how beautiful and green Southtown was. This was both the natural environment and how people actually kept their homes with a lot of green around Southtown. I think that it's seeing this that made me develop an initial love for the environment. From this, I understood that there could be a harmony between development and preservation of the environment. And over the years, my appreciation of the environment increased. I admired the work of the CPR group, who defended our environment after plans to build a pier were clearly unsupported by detailed analysis of impacts on the environment. I appreciate their continued efforts today to defend our environment. Personally, I was part of a group that fought against the planned redevelopment of Smith Market Area. If we lost that fight, it would have been an unnecessary $2 million spending that would have taken away the natural look and feel of one of our national treasures. I fight for these things because the environment matters to me. What also matters to me are the efforts of the National Trust to preserve and conserve areas for our future generations. The work of the National Conservation Council also matters. That council must have relevant experts on its board with the proper power to vote on the issues that are important to us and require environmental impact assessments for proposed developments. The current dismissed board must be reappointed. The need to fight for these things is why the environment is one of my priorities, along with cost of living, education, crime, and immigration. Regarding the environment, I want to discuss an issue close to your heart in Southtown and also mine. This is planned development in or near the Southtown Basin and nearby. One impact of the planned development is the flood risk due to the development in the Southtown Basin. Before I go into the detail, I do realize that some people are not aware of what the Southtown Basin is, a fact that was obvious to me when I was telling my friend in Southtown about it, because she was new to Southtown. So basically, the Southtown Basin is this area of wetlands between Southtown Road and Little Pearson Highway. So normally what happens is, when it rains, the basin would collect the rain, and any excess rainwater would then go through the beach ridge and then along the coast of the Southtown Lagoon. That is a normal process for what happens when there's rain. Unfortunately, current development plans threaten the natural buffer that the basin provides. These developments you can find online in the minutes of the Central Planning Authority. I believe one of them is Yarrow. The importance of the development is that as the developments increase in the basin, different areas of the basin get filled. This means that there's a decrease in the ability of the basin to retain water. And because new developments may be built above existing properties in South Sound, the rainwater will now run off from those new developments, possibly into properties in South Sound. This increases the flood risk for existing homes in South Sound. You should also know that in addition to planned developments, the government plans a 4-lane highway through the South Sound Basin. When elected, I will address this by implementing the 2014 recommendations from DOE, NRA, and Water Authority that a study be done of the entire basin to analyze flood risk before any further development is explored. I will support the development of a comprehensive stormwater management plan for the entire basin, not on a project-by-project basis. I will support the idea of putting a nature trail within the basin as proposed by Sustainable Cayman, rather than a 4-lane highway that the government plans as part of its long-term corridor plan. I will take these actions because, well, the environment, it matters to me. It matters to us as a community. It impacts our quality of life. It impacts our environment. Unfortunately, this is not the only planned development in the area. We also have Cayman Enterprise City, which is a large mixed-use development. This is expected to include commercial buildings, a hotel, and residential housing. The potential issue for South Sound, as noted in the previous CP agenda submissions, is that there were planned emergency accesses through Mary Reed Crescent and Anbonny Crescent. That would mean that those emergency accesses and emergencies would be used to access South Sound eventually. However, as we know, what happens with planning is that a lot of developers will tell planning what they need to hear. So currently it's an emergency access, but that could be later changed by a variance. So if that emergency access is converted into a regular access, traffic could increase on South Sound Road. This could lead to congestion and safety issues for residents, especially increase in speeding along South Sound Road where people exercise regularly. When elected, I will vote against any plan that results in increased traffic flow that could happen because of a potential conversion of emergency access into regular access onto South Sound Road. I will propose a motion to amend the relevant laws so that no large development can have alternative access through existing established neighborhoods. I will take these actions because I think your quality of life matters. And the problem with the traffic flow is that it will make its way down to Walker's Road, worsening the situation that we have now at peak times on Walker's Road. To alleviate the existing and future traffic issue, you should be aware that the government plans to widen Walker's Road. What most people don't know is that Walker's Road, when it was initially published, was published at 50 feet. Walker's Road is 50 feet from South Sound Road down to Boilers Road. If government proceeds with the widening, it will mean that government has to tear down fences all along Walker's Road in order to widen the road to 50 feet. When elected, I will vote against any plan to widen Walker's Road, as it will not lead to any significant traffic improvement. Instead, it will threaten properties residents currently enjoy, and it will decrease their quality of life. For the traffic solutions, when elected, I will support existing reports that have been put on the shelf and the government has ignored it. So that you're aware, a report was prepared during COVID by the Strategic Economic Advisory Council. Without going into the details, that really recommended the creation of a Cayman transport company. That involved bus drivers and taxi drivers working for this company and establishing high standards for all taxi and transport drivers. The idea was operating at this high standard, you'd have buses, large buses on main roads, smaller buses on side roads, and you would incorporate Uber in this equation. Incorporating Uber meant that people who wanted to have a second job or to earn some extra income could do Uber. That idea was ignored by the government. Now, during the time of another government administration, a committee was set up to look at all of the traffic solutions that we talk about all the time. Staggering work times, the list goes on. It's the same things that we talk about all the time. I will take these actions and not take the approach of business as usual, like some others have in previous administrations. I will do these things because it's important to me. I want to stand with the people on these things. And the problem doesn't really stop on Walker's Road. When you look at the kids that are walking from the schools to their homes on Fairbanks and beyond, you will see that they have no way to cross the road safely. And for a while now, I've thought that we should have pedestrian crossings there, near Hilton Estates and beyond. I'm sort of going to, there's probably something else you didn't know about, I'll do it later, I guess. So moving on from the environment and traffic, I want to talk about crime generally. There's been a lot of petty crime and a lot of complexes on Fairbanks and other places. There are people who are walking around trying to open car doors, and I'm not sure if the police has been able to identify these people. I would like to assist with this crime reporting by enhancing the existing neighborhood watch groups in the area. And if there's not one for South Sound, I'd like to probably start one tonight and collect your phone numbers and create a WhatsApp group for that. Now, the bottom line is that Georgetown South needs a representative who understands business and people. Both can prosper, but always bearing in mind the impact on the environment. My pledge to you when elected is simple. I will bring the same diligence, governance, accountability, transparency, integrity, and attention to detail that I applied in financial services to serving the people of Georgetown South and all of Cayman. Election day is April 3rd. Vote for quality of life. Vote for the environment. Vote for accountability. Vote for good governance. Most of all, vote for me. I didn't want to do a long speech. I wanted to be more interactive and get questions and answers. So at this time, I would like to just hear any questions that you have. Are we going to put the stand here? He's just going to move the mic, so come up to the mic and ask questions.
If they prefer to sit, I can just have you.
Sure, okay.
Just raise your hand if you have a question.
Raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. Mr. Anderson wants a question?
Well, I can ask.
Here.
I don't normally need a mic. I have a loud voice. I don't think anybody needs a mic. I've lived here 35 years, and Georgetown South, as far as I'm concerned, we need a member that helps represent us more, because the road traffic is terrible over the last few years. It's got really bad. I walk my dog every morning and I regularly have to sort of avoid traffic because they're speeding or drinking coffee or texting. I never see any police. I've written to the police department several times about speeding, and they just ignore you. And you know, we need sort of better representation for Georgetown South and the whole area.
Yeah, I've spoken to the police about speeding in different areas, and the usual response is, "We're there. You just don't see us." So I've also told that they don't have enough resources, and they can't be everywhere at the same time. So if it is a case that they need more resources, I will support a vote to try to get them more resources. However, one thing I plan to do is to have regular meetings. The way I see it is, if a politician can take a vacation somewhere, you can have a meeting twice a year with your constituents. I believe in keeping people updated on what's happening. If you come to my office and you say these things are outstanding, I should be able to get someone in my office to follow up and contact you directly, or do a semi-annual update. I would like to start with a quarterly update and then move to a semi-annual to let you know what's happening in Parliament, what's happening with your particular issue, to keep you up to date, because it's not right that you only see the politician at election time. I mean, think about it. They have the time to come and knock on your door to get a vote during an election. They have the time. So I will find time to make sure that everyone is kept informed.
So how often would these regular meetings be?
I think in the first year, I would do it quarterly. I think in the second year, it'll be semi-annual to give you a summary update on everything that's happening in Parliament or everything that's happening in a ministry I'm in. I'll update you at least semi-annually starting next year.
Well, tough crowd.
What are your views on legalizing marijuana or decriminalizing it? What do you think about that?
I think that is up to the voters to vote on April 30th.
Oh, it's on the ballot?
Yes, so the referendum is decriminalization of small amounts of cannabis. However, no study appears to have been done on what a small amount is. I can tell you from the court that the court is only given fines for amounts of 2 ounces and less. So the court is already legislating for the Parliament.
2 ounces and more.
It's 2 ounces or less. That's what the court is currently giving you a fine if you have 2 ounces or less.
Okay, so you're not getting a felony conviction or anything.
Not at the moment. They have the power to do it, but they're not doing that. They're not giving convictions for people who have 2 ounces
You
or
can't be
less.
criminalizing young people or anybody for marijuana.
So the issue is that when you look at the court cases, a lot of young people are saying that they're using cannabis for self-medication. So for anxiety, for depression, for stress. So if a lot of our young people are having these experiences and are using this for that reason, then we are in a challenging situation. Do we lock all of them up and give them all criminal records, and then they don't have a second chance at a job? So it's a very tough area. Unfortunately, I'm a little disappointed the government hasn't presented the research on the effects of cannabis, on different uses. I'm disappointed that we haven't thought in advance about programs like rehab, or what happens when someone gets addicted. Do we have sufficient facilities to deal with those situations? So I hope that if the people decide to vote yes on referendum, that the government does not implement it immediately, that the government actually puts in place these facilities that support the legislation that they pass.
as far as I understand, the referendum doesn't necessarily mean that those things are going to be done. I mean, the government can ignore it if they want to. Is that the case?
That's correct. So, in my view, the government deliberately did a non-binding referendum. I'm sorry to say it, but it's just to get you excited about these issues so that you would ignore the lack of performance over the past 4 years, so that you would not see that all these things that you asked for last time are left undone. So by putting in front of you a non-binding referendum that they do not have to honor if you vote yes, by doing that, they've totally distracted all of us.
Alric. Yeah, I think I can.
So we can hear the
Yeah. Alric, have you done any research, and is there any scope in the law to address the issues with insurance and insurance companies in the island? Because from someone who is in the construction industry, we have probably the highest construction standards in the Caribbean, and I have no problem with saying that. But yet, we still have to live under the regime of insurance rates that don't seem to consider that our buildings are superior to anything else in the Caribbean and South Florida. So have you done any research on that issue and how some possible alternatives to address those problems?
No, I haven't done any research in the construction area. However, insurance in general, I have spoken to groups of doctors who have basically boiled it down to something simple. If you have, so insurance is done based on a pool, and it's based on the risk that that pool faces. So if you have an unhealthy population, if you have high rate of cancer, if you have high rate of diabetes, that is going to make your premiums worse. So think about us. We're a small population and a high cost. So naturally your premium is going to be high. So a lot of people will say, you know, doctors are greedy, insurance companies are greedy. But the fact is how we look at the pool and how we rate the risk for that pool, and the premiums are a result of that.
But I was speaking specifically to property insurance, not health.
Yeah, so I haven't researched that.
I think it's something that needs to be addressed, because I've seen homes that will go through Armageddon and people are still paying $30,000 a year for insurance, $20,000, $15,000, and there is no way on earth that any of Cayman would be left if these homes were to experience that kind of catastrophic damage. So I think it's an issue that really, really, really needs to be addressed by the government and find alternatives to make it more livable and make in the insurance companies take into account our building standards in the Cayman Islands.
Note taken.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's one of my struggles, is my home insurance. Yeah, too much. And I've invested, got a good roof, got hurricane shutters, and I'm still paying.
Well, I will look into it. I did not specifically look into the home insurance.
Property insurance, yeah.
I will definitely look into it and get back to you.
Thank you, sir. Even though I vote in New
But it's island-wide.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Well, a big one that no one's mentioned yet is the cruise ship docks. another referendum point. Where exactly do you stand on that?
Well, I have the same answer. My answer is no. It was my answer 4 years ago, and it's still no. I feel that if there is any risk whatsoever of harming your main product, then you don't take that risk. And I feel that it's more about the cruise ships controlling the port and then continuing their revenue earning capacity, because at the moment they have so many services they offer on the ship, so they don't really want you to leave the ship. So getting the port means having their own stores on the port. That's what it really means, and them having ownership of stuff on the port. So the idea that locals are going to benefit from that arrangement, I think it's far-fetched. So for that reason, no direct benefit for Caymanians as they're promoted, and also because of the high risk in my mind of any damage to the 7 Mile Beach. The lack of data that's been presented, I would have to vote no on that issue. Well, if there's no more questions, we can just have some sandwiches.
I really don't have any questions per se.
What do you
but-
prefer?
No, thank you. I, like most people, concerned about the cost of living and jobs for our younger generation. And also, when we mentioned about the marijuana use, you said that, a lot of young people use it for their moods or, self-medication. And I believe that's true. But instead of having rehab centers, I think we need to focus more on their mental health.
Yes.
Mental health is destroying our young people.
I agree. As you know, there are some facilities like Alex's Place that provides assistance for young people, but we don't invest enough in mental health. That investment needs to be in school as well.
Exactly.
So
it needs to begin there, because that's where their marijuana use begins.
Yeah, so my view is that instead of focusing on the building, spending $170 million in the building, we need to invest this in things like mental health, after school care, support for parents that are going through stressful issues, to identify the root causes of the stress and anxiety, rather than simply resorting to drugs or to cannabis to solve the issue. Because I think cannabis may be an easy way to address the issue when the issue is something else.
Exactly. And that's what we need to address with our young people in the generation now and the generations to come. Because it's not going to get any better unless we get to the root of why they're so depressed or whatever. And it's rampant out there. Rampant.
So what the data from the Alex Panton Foundation shows is that young people are saying that their parents aren't listening to them. They're saying that they're being bullied at school. They're saying that there are no longer affordable activities for them to do. And I say affordable because during the summer, if a parent wants to send their child to a summer camp, sometimes it's $500 for the week. And if you're a low-income parent, you probably won't be able to afford it. So I think that we need to listen to them first to hear what the issues are, and then we tackle the approach to mental health and helping those young people at their level, talking to them about their issues at their level, and giving them the support that they need.
Yeah, and education about mental health issues. They need to be able to identify.
Right,
And
correct.
I don't, that Alex Patton Foundation, while it's all nice and good, I don't think they are reaching the amount of people that needs to be reached. And a girlfriend of mine, she said her girls wanted to try it out. They were having some issues. And they told them to join the forum online. And that's the last thing a young person wants to do when you're having mental health issues, is to join any forum online. That can't work. And I'm saying this because I have mental health issues. And I know I wouldn't want to join any forum online. So that is a big disappointment for me.
Mr. Alric has been as loud silent voice. He goes to the meetings and he have gone. My name is Sandra Miller, and we have more than within three, when I say 3 roads in Windsor Park. They have mental ill situation.
It's out of
And
line.
he has attended several meetings with Jackie Loud Silent.
So yeah, we have, there's loud silent voices, which actually is partially there to help the people that are helping people.
It's a backup of what you decided to do. There are other avenues that you could start out from, and based on wherever you're at and whatever challenge you're at, I would say that Mr. Lindsay has attended those meetings at Loud Silent Voice.
Yes, so
And that's all good and well. My point is, we need to educate the children
Correct.
and give them more options.
Correct.
If they're not educated, if they don't know what mental illness is, they're not going to seek help. Or they say, I just feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Correct.
but we have to make that a part of our daily talk. And
Yes.
I can't tell you the amount of people that suffer from that in our younger generations. And it's scary.
yes,
Scary for our parents to be dealing with our young children.
Look at
And
So-
you are
all the
correct.
teenage suicides. I mean, that just blows my mind.
Yes.
yes. So one of the things that I think needs to happen is we do, at least in the schools also, is having regular mental health screening so that we can identify at-risk young people from an early stage. And I think we need to train our teachers to be able to detect it, that distress.
Well, a lot of them in the public system
Teachers.
cause the stress as well.
Yes.
Now you need to do something about them too.
Yes.
So we also need to establish workshops for stress management. Perhaps the people who have gone over this situation could probably act as a peer support, someone who understands the experience of having the challenges of mental health challenges. You could have that sort of peer support as well from someone who actually understands, as opposed to a doctor or someone else. Like I mentioned earlier, it would be helpful to have more mental health professionals on campus at the school as well. And I think we need to have more wellness programs because, as you know, for at least a standard health insurance contract, I think there's like 1 visit for wellness. And as you know, that's not very helpful for someone who's going through a tough time, with mental health challenges. I also think that we need to give parent support in addition to the children. Because obviously if you have a single mom, the father's in prison, she may be unemployed at the moment temporarily, and she's stressed out. And because of that stress, she reacts to her children in a certain way, and it's because of the stress, and then that child is impacted. So we also need to find a way to get support for parents.
Yeah, as well as it affects those that their parents are wealthy, rich. It has no,
Demographic.
Yeah, it doesn't discriminate. There's no
does not
discrimination.
discriminate at all. And it is, yes, tough times can cause children to be that way, but it's also a chemical imbalance, which it has nothing to do with how you grow up, has nothing to do with
DNA.
whatever, but it's it's in your DNA.
You're right.
And we just need to talk about it, be more open about it.
Yeah, it has to become okay to talk about what you're going through. And part of that is changing our culture, that just because you're feeling this way, there's something wrong with you. We have to change that culture and understand that all of us have challenges, and just make it okay to talk about it. And also, we need to have the resources in place.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think there's a lot of wasted spending by the government. They should be investing in the people, the greatest
Yeah,
asset.
but you also have to remember that you've been in all of these different, like Loud Sound of Voices and everything. You've been working with these people, and you've been doing such a good job throughout the years, even COVID, with elderly, with young people, and the mentally ill.
This is true, but we have a lot of work to do still, and we have.
But you
we
can't
have,
do it. You can't do it without you have your counselors that look. These people are here, are willing to say, Mr. Alric Lindsay, we are going to be counselors, and you are going to be a government representative to make us do for you and make the job right.
Yes. I will definitely also set up make sure district councilors set up
Yeah,
to deal with
that's where I'm
the
at.
concerns of the people to take back to Parliament.
Yeah.
Please note that you lost with Barbara 94%, 94 people. And
Yes.
she's not running. You are here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You are
I think we have
here
another question
to
here.
make it work.
Thank you. We have another question here.
So, Alric, do you think the problem is border control from the east? How are these drugs getting here? And obviously, if kids are using it and more people, then there's a demand and a supply. So that needs to be controlled. That's the root of the problem, is to stop the flow. Why haven't they set up anything in Cayman Brack and Little Cayman?
Well, I spoke to people in Cayman Brack about this, and they seem to think that law enforcement is involved. So
I'll tell you why it doesn't pass, because someone's brother is the biggest drug dealer over there.
Everybody know that. Everybody knows it.
well, let's increase partnership with the U.S. Coast Guard, which has no personal interest in the matter. Increase partnership with the U.S. Coast Guard. They have no conflict. They'll do their job. I actually thought about why not have a U.S. base in Cayman as well.
Yeah, Coast Guard, or what about Jamaica Coast Guard?
Well, as you know, most of our officers are from
They're
Jamaica,
corrupt.
so
Okay.
I would want a more independent group.
Some might not work.
Yeah, you got it right.
Any other questions?
What are you going to do about cost of living? I mean, and that's such a broad scope that I don't even want to ask you what you're going to do, but I'll just put it forward that we're all concerned about it.
Yeah.
And, I don't really worry about me, because I'm sure I'm not going to have much longer to live, but I worry about my children. hush, Tanya. I worry about my children and my grandchildren. I mean, they get paid, they pay their bills, and that's it. There's nothing left. My son just moved into his house. Thank God they could get one, but it's, you know, it's tough.
I agree, cost of living is a tough issue. So there are a number of things that we can explore. Cayman is an expensive place. We do import everything. But the things I've thought about, as you know, CEC tells you to use energy efficient appliances, but sometimes that's not practical, especially for people who, you know, be a single mother home and, you know, it's not practical.
Well, that's one thing that I personally don't have to complain about, because I built my house with those styrofoam blocks. So I never turn off my AC, never. And my bill this month is $313, and you know the size of my house. So I personally don't have to complain, but like my children, when they're renting or whatever, their bills are high because they're not insulated.
So the other things I would propose is we need to look into encouraging the use of more renewable energy sources.
Yes.
You know, whether that's solar. And we have to make that affordable too. So
Exactly.
subsidize it for, especially for low-income families.
Yeah.
Who probably can't afford
You
it.
need to get a fair price for it.
Yeah.
When you sell it to the government, sell it to CUC, and they cut it.
Yeah, but do it individually rather than having to CUC.
Well,
That's
now
not
CUC
our
are the only
question.
people who will buy it.
Yeah, but enable to do, let's say, washing machine or dryer, and we put a solar system just based on, because the economical system plus the battery and everything, we don't need to go through CUC. It's going to cost, I apologize, Mr. Lindsay. However, we can have a washing machine, go online and just have the washing machine on a battery or washing machine and dryer.
Yes.
Not going through what CUC has given us and asking us to have. I don't know about
I
that.
just want to finish the answer her question.
Yeah.
Just finish answering her question. So the other items are, if you look at the CUC agreement, there is actually no way for our regulator to do anything about the rate increases, because the agreement has a formula, and that's how CUC does their rate adjustment.
Our
I
panel.
just want to finish answering this question.
Okay.
So that is how CUC does
Yeah.
the rate adjustment using that formula. The problem is our Electricity Sector Act says that Alric can only monitor that CUC is following the formula. So that needs to change so that Alric has the ability to cap utility rates.
Yeah, that needs to
Okay.
be.
The other thing that happens is when it comes to the bank interest rates, I personally believe that SEMA needs to have additional powers to cap what is a maximum interest rate that can be done in certain products, and also when in times of crisis, SEMA should be able to cap the maximum increase that is as a result of a crisis. When it comes to your food products, in terms of cost of living, I think practically speaking, we would have to talk to supermarkets to see if they would consider any other sources of food. So not only us doing more farming and trying to do whatever we can to increase farming here, to increase the food security. Obviously, we can't produce enough to serve the whole population, but if we talk to supermarkets about if they're willing to look at Central America and bring in cheaper quality products, maybe that's also an idea. However, as we know, from a culture standpoint, some Caymanians will say, I don't know what a product is, and they probably won't use it, so we have that challenge as well.
Yeah.
Although we could get cheaper products, quality products from other places, we probably won't use it because we don't know what the product is.
And another thing, why does government charge so much duty on the stuff that comes in to feed us, and then they give duty concessions to the billionaire developers? That doesn't make sense to me.
That's the reason we need Alric.
It doesn't make sense to me either, because I think that instead of giving the billionaires concessions, the concessions should be going towards small business and other areas that are we find challenging in society.
We have a question over here.
So if you became a minister, how would you balance the demands of being a minister with the demands of constituents?
From talking to existing ministers, it is tough to be able to be in the community all the time. But since we're going to have offices and going to have the office staffed, I don't see the difficulty in informing my staff member of what is happening in Parliament and saying to him or her, I think we should hold a meeting in the constituency the next month or the next 3 months, whatever it is. I don't see the difficulty in doing that. And the reason I say that is because although I realize the demands of a minister, from speaking to current ministers, the way I see it is, if I can find a time to take a trip somewhere for the weekend, I can find the time for the constituents. That's my personal view. I will make the time. And that's why I say in the first year, most likely do a quarterly meeting, but in the second year, do a semi-annual meeting, because I think that's more realistic, given the workload. Given the
we need
workload.
district council. Without district council to let you know what is going on in each district, then you can face what you have to do. You are just one person and you have been doing too many things within the whole Cayman Islands and Cayman Rock.
I agree, we need a district council, and I support district council setup as soon as I'm elected.
You will be there.
Alric, and for the record, I've known Alric longer than Mark, right? So, and he didn't ask me to jump in and ask all these questions. I just figured I'd make some of the place exciting, right? But based on your experience in the legal fraternity, as well as in the financial industry, do you think there is any more scope for business development in those two areas of the economy? And if so, without getting too complex, just give us some insight based on your experience.
Can you repeat the question?
Is there, and the question is coming from the perspective of addressing cost of living and creating an environment where we can have more lucrative jobs, so to speak. So I wanted to find out from your perspective in the legal fraternity if there's any scope for business growth nationally and internationally in both legal and financial services.
Yes, there is scope as long as we encourage innovation and the industries.
Any examples? I know you're not, SEC or NASDAQ.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm not the SEC. I think that there is scope for more in terms of like audits, for example. I think that there is scope for auditing more types of vehicles, but that would only help the audit industry. But what I think is that we need to encourage innovation in the industry, and yeah, just take on the ideas that, you know, are brought to us and try to work with people rather than putting a lot of red tape and, you know, other things to stop creativity and innovation. There are sandwiches in the back.
No more
One question here.
questions. I need to leave. Mr. Lindsay, I
Okay,
really
good night.
need to leave. Good night. Yeah.
Have you an opinion on restricting the importation of cars onto the island as a means of getting rid of the road problem? Stop bringing more cars on the island.
Well, as you know, my opinion is yes, we can have a restriction. What the data shows is that the majority of people who are driving are work permit holders. So the way I see it is if a lot of people that come here, they're used to taking a reliable bus, train, ferry. I think that incoming workers will be happy to take those things as long as it's affordable and it's reliable. So I think that we should have explored these things from an earlier stage. It may be challenging to restrict cars now that people are gotten used to the idea. But if we are serious about a solution, then I think that is part of the solution, is to have a proper public transport system that is reliable and affordable. And then people would probably use their cars less. Obviously, there are other solutions to this, which is that we have all of our government buildings concentrated in one place. I don't know why we don't have satellite offices and different districts so that all of the government employees don't have to drive into the same place. That also contributes to the congestion.
But you look at the cars, there's one person in a four-seater car driving on his own. Could we not insist through the early rush hour times that there's at least two people in the car?
Yes, I'm not sure that when this has been proposed, what people say to me is, suppose I don't want to go to the same place he's going to, and suppose I want to leave. This is what I'm told. Yeah. Suppose I want to leave, and he doesn't want to leave. That's what I'm told. So I think that we have to become serious about the solution. And if part of that solution means that you must carpool, then you should actively carpool. If part of it means that companies are going to allow more employees to work remotely, then we need to put it in place. If it means that more government offices must be in other districts, or satellite offices, then we must do it. I think the government sitting around and doing nothing about the solutions, that's not helpful.
Building roads just for more cars is not the way to go.
Roads are temporary solutions.
Expensive temporary solutions.
Which goes to the campaign funding of someone else.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on increasing Cayman's population?
I don't think we can increase the population without thinking about the consequences. So, for example, infrastructure. Can increase in population handle the schools? Can our schools handle it? Can our hospitals handle it? So more deliberate thinking needs to be done. More long-term development thinking has to be in place. What we do is we just let things get out of control. We let reckless development happen. And then we think about, we have a problem now, and then try to fix it, but it's too late.
Yeah, I mean, what would happen to us if there was a big disaster here? We don't have the infrastructure for that. Fire service, ambulances, hospitals. Luckily, we got Health City now, but, you know.
Correct.
Imagine if the runway was damaged.
Yeah.
You know, because planes would fly in and pick up their people, like Ivan, but if the runway is damaged, 100,000 people, it's a big mess.
It's a big mess, and they don't want to stop at 100,000. Their aim is 250,000. So that, where are they going to go?
You can take one question here and one question there.
What are your thoughts on the census? I know we've been doing one every 10 years. A lot of the decisions and the data that drive those decision makings come from the census. I was a census worker in 2021 when we did it, and there were several people that took that exercise for a joke. And I think that because you can, by law, be fined or imprisoned for not participating in the census or answering falsely. And I don't think that people were reprimanded properly for that, because how can you make informed decisions without accurate data, for one, like the schools being overpopulated and stuff like that? How will you know if you need another school in Bon Town if you don't know how fast Bon Town is growing? So I guess my question is, would you consider having a census every 5 years instead of every 10 years? And speaking to the powers that be about actually enforcing and implementing those fines and stuff for people who don't take it seriously. Because I can tell you, like I said, as a census worker, I'm not confident in the figures that we got from that census, because a lot of people took it for a joke.
I would definitely agree to a census on a more regular basis every 5 years rather than 10 years. As we can see, our population actually grows very quickly, especially after a crisis. So instead of waiting until that happens, it would be a better idea to have a census on a 5-year period. And yes, once people are educated about the law, because a lot of people don't know the law, and I know they say ignorance of the law is no excuse, but I think that there needs to be some education on that, and then I support enforcement.
Yeah, with regard to the cruise port, let's get back to that. Some people, and including myself, believe that the engagement of the cruise ships into the new ports and everything is a 50-50 agreement. In other words, the cruise ship companies and the cruise ships get their ships a berthing that is easy for people to come on and off, and they can increase the amounts of people coming to the Cayman Islands, as well as have their shops, etc. But it also gives thousands and probably tens of thousands of Caymanians opportunities to do tours and certain events, and also develop the economy, because if many people are coming in, then we will invest in the economy in order to build a tourism experience and benefit the country overall in the long run. What is your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a 50-50, or do you think that Caymanians are not going to benefit at all from this whole thing? And why would you not want to do that?
I think that this is it's not directed at you. It's my view on the issue. I think there's a sales pitch by cruise ships. The fact is that there's everything on the ship. There are supermarkets, there are shops. They try to offer all the services on the ship. And the reality is they're also selling the tours on the ship. And from talking to people I know in the industry, the cruise ship, let's say, sells a tour for $100. The guy in the ground is getting $25. So I don't buy the idea that a whole bunch of Caymanians are not going to benefit. I don't believe that. I believe that the cruise ship instead is going to start trying to get its own operations, its more operations on the ground, so that they control the whole channel. So they're going to control the sales on the ship, and then soon they're going to start owning stores on the ground and the tour guides on the ground. And that is not a formula that I think is in the best interest of the country.
Well, that is not what has been happening in the past. In the past, I know people, and I know that the local Caymanians thrive very well off the cruise ship industry. And I know people who have contracts with the cruise ships. thousands of dollars, did very well with contracts, Caymanians who did that. And I just wonder why you think that would be a bad thing if the country was actually getting any money at all from these transactions. I mean, once you're making some money from it, that to me is a good thing. Why would you want to make it more difficult for a person to do business in your country?
I don't think that Caymanians are getting the lion's share.
Well, that's not a problem. The problem is that we're getting a share. And
No, I think the problem is that we're not getting a fair share. That is the problem. Because the people that I know who drive buses and do tours in my neighborhood, sometimes they're only making $50 for the day. And then they spent, probably that in gas and doing the tour.
Well, that will happen now because things are not so uncertain. People like yourself who are coming into government are making it difficult for people like myself who want to invest and who want to make money because it looks like you don't want to have a cruise port. So that is a bit, disheartening for investment. So at this point, you have to think ahead and you have to show that you can actually think forward. If the airlines told you that they needed a better facility and a better airport, you jump and do it. Why wouldn't you want to build a better facility for the cruise ships? Why do you want to have people lining up in the sun for hours and hours and then speaking badly of the Cayman Islands in this region? Why would we want to have islands that are smaller than us having a perfectly normal cruise ship facility that can hold 3 and 4 cruise ships that hold 5,000 people? Why would we do that to the Cayman Islands? I don't understand it. Tell me.
Why do we want 10,000 tourists wandering around Georgetown?
Well, what difference does it make when we want flying tourists? Or it's to say then we should stop everything. We should then say, okay, no tourism in Cayman at all. Let's stop the ships, let's stop the planes, let's stop everything because we don't want tourism. We either want it or we don't want it. So you have to make a decision because we're making money from it.
High-end tourism and cruise ship tourism.
Let's just give Mr. Lindsay a chance to respond.
Yeah, I have the same response. If you have 6 ships in, right? Only one can dock, right? Correct?
No, you build one that can hold 5 or 4. Who's going to build a boating facility that only holds 1 ship? That's ridiculous. You're going to build a boating facility that can hold 4 ships.
Yeah, but what about the infrastructure you need to
yes, but
accommodate those
I'm telling you,
yeah, but we want the money. Georgetown's a mess. We couldn't do the Georgetown revitalization properly, and you're advocating for a $500 million cruise ship berthing facility when Georgetown we can't figure out parking. We've wasted $10 million on the Georgetown revitalization, and now you want us to go into debt to the tune of 300 to 500 million. Who's going to pay for that? You're doing well. You make a lot of money. A lot of people don't.
Well, that's ridiculous.
But we're going to tax you and everybody else.
So, Mr.
Thank you.
One second, sir. One second.
Thank you.
My income, that's foolishness.
Yeah, so that's why we're going to stop it here, sir. Sir, if you don't mind, right? Mr. Lindsay is his meeting, and he's made his position clear where he stands on the matter. And I'm sure he'd be willing to speak with you more one-on-one.
Yes, you did.
Just
okay, okay, talk sensible.
I know. You don't want to
Sir, we want to talk
I understand the question.
but we also want to be respectful as well.
I understand your question. Would it be possible?
Foolishness.
Would it be possible for us to get your number so I could meet with you?
Yeah, for sure.
Sheena.
Yeah, so he as he said, he stated his position, and he's happy to speak with you more one-on-one about that issue, yeah? Thank you.
Thank you.
Alric, what is your solution for the 7 Mile Beach? Do you think government should pay for that, or it should be over like a loan and the hotels, or other people pay for it over time?
No, I don't think government should pay for it.
You mean the emotions?
Yeah. So it would be like a 20-year plan, maybe like a loan, and each person pays every month towards it? Like each hotel or that is affected or something?
Well, my understanding is that advice was given when some of these places were being built too close to the water, and they built anyway. So that being the case, I would think the money must come from their pockets.
Well, they built too close to the water because they were allowed to do so, period. They apply just like everybody else, and we allow them to do that. And we need to change that, period. They can't do what we don't allow them to do. And I say we, I mean all us.
True.
Long and short of that story.
I'll take a final question.
Right here.
Wherever. I think this lady was waiting for.
Okay. I can talk to you about that.
Okay.
The 1997 development plan, I think they've tried to push that forward with the plan came out every few years and it just stalls again. What are your thoughts, or how would you drive that initiative so that we can actually get a revision to that development plan? Because when you hear everyone's, sort of ideas of what they would like to see this country become, everyone's ideas are very different. But that development plan informs everything, like every aspect of the country, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
My understanding is they put through another draft recently, so I would actively push for it to be finalized and passed.
Has there been public consultation on that?
I don't know that there has. I just heard from speaking to the ministers that a recent draft was done, but I don't think there was any public consultation on that draft. So that I would also encourage that to be done and be done over a period of time so people can digest what's in it and take people's input and amend the plan. So that was the last question. So I want to thank everyone for coming out.